You're listening to the Teach Better Talk podcast featuring expert educators eager to share progressive tactics to reach more students. Teach Better Talk is created by teachers and fueled by passion. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 61 of Teach Better Talk.
I'm Ray Hewart, and as always, I am with the jazzy marathon running Jeff Vargas.
I haven't run a marathon.
Well, you should. You've been working on running. You should keep with that.
I am actually on Sunday. I'm running my first half marathon.
Wow,
So
see, that's really impressive, Jeff. We're all here to support you.
And I am scheduled. I've already registered for my first marathon ever in September. So I've got a little bit of time, but Sunday's a big one for me. I went down for about 5-6 weeks with an injury, and it has not been the funnest road getting back. But I'm ready. So thanks for doing. I appreciate you saying that. Kind of gave me a little confidence there. But
well, you heard it here first, folks.
The jazzy.
Text Jeff or direct message him on Sunday about his half marathon, and then in September we are going to interview him to ask him how his marathon went.
Oh, all right, there you go. I love it. So
now that we've gotten you to blush, how are you, Jeff?
I'm blushing. I'm great. I'm doing awesome. Super excited about this episode.
This guest, I know is lame, but he's like the man in terms of podcasts. I'm stoked that he's around.
Did you just call him lame?
Well, I think I said it's lame that I'm about to
you're like, yeah.
The man.
We both fanned out over him because he's just like the dude, man.
Sometimes you just have to fangirl out.
He's awesome. Yeah, sometimes I have to fangirl out. It's just the way I roll, It's just what it is.
So, Jeff, I have something I want to make sure we mention in the beginning before we lose our mind.
Go.
The Teach Better Conference proposal submissions are due. April 26th is the last day to submit your proposal. We've talked about it before. We encourage you to submit your passions, but sometimes we get a little distracted. We put it on our to-do list and we forget, or we had the courage to start the proposal, but we didn't officially press submit. And I want to be here. If you need a sign, this is your sign. I'm holding it up for you, encouraging you. You have a story to share, and we really want to hear it. So muster up the courage, direct message me. I'll tell you how amazing you are privately, but really, really, really make sure you submit because it is due at midnight on April 26th, which is very soon.
I want to know if anybody listening had I Saw the Sign by Ace of Base come into their head, because I totally did, and I'm not sure if that's a medical
Is that the
condition.
same song that I'm thinking? I saw the sign and opened up my eyes.
I'm so glad that you sang it so I didn't have to. And that's why we make a good team. Yes, that's what happens. So it wasn't just me, so that's good. I'm glad you're weird like that too, so that's great. So we talked about this episode. I want to touch really quick on something that we kind of talked on it a little bit about a way in which his school looks at assessment and grading and stuff, and it reminded me of standards-based grading,
which we have multiple courses and downloads.
Yeah, so I wanted to touch, this is one that's been out for a while, but we don't touch much. I don't think we talked about it for a while. So and this is a course that you led. I love it. And it's, by the way, it's free, 100% free. And it's called Getting Your Feet Wet with Standards-Based Grading over at teachbetteracademy.com. I really liked it. So, can you do two things for me, Ray? Can you tell me, hey, what's this course? And then on top of that, can you tell me, in case I don't know, hey, what's standards-based grading?
Absolutely. For those of you who have dabbled with the idea of your grading scale needing to be different, but not sure how you were going to do that, standard-based grading is an incredible avenue that you can start exploring, whether your grade book is in a percentage grade book or something else, whatever. It doesn't matter. The philosophy behind standard-based grading is focused on feedback. And so we've created the free course over at teachbetteracademy.com to really give the 1,000-point view on how you can start adopting the Teach Better team. No, it's not really our policy. It's a huge movement, but the standard-based grading philosophy, because whether you have a district initiative or you're just trying to enhance your classroom through providing better feedback to students, the ability to kind of structure that in a way that is conducive to meeting your students' needs is really important. So in the free course, we talk all about the 4 key pillars that you need to make sure that everything's aligned to. And then from there, if you're interested, there's obviously a full course. We have a ton of downloads under the free step tab at teachbetter.com. But the whole concept of standard-based grading is feedback. And that's something that he focuses a lot on in this episode, is how we can provide students better feedback. And then the grade becomes irrelevant. We need to focus on students' understanding over anything else. And then depending on what numerical value or no numerical value you put into your grade book, it becomes irrelevant. It should be used as a communication tool. That's really what this course is about. How can you use your feedback and your grading scale as a communication tool about your students' understanding?
Ray, you know it's not irrelevant.
Well, yeah.
This episode.
Ooh.
Totally relevant.
You're such a loser.
I know, I'm such a loser. I got it. No, but that was the transition. I think that worked. I had it until you called me a loser. But we had it. So I love it. I love how just unprofessional our intros are. This episode, so that was great. That was exactly what I was looking for. So thank you. That was like spot on what I was looking for. And Tim does talk about that. So in this episode, we've got Tim Cavey, who you probably already know him because you probably have listened to his podcast, Teachers on Fire. And if you haven't, you need to go subscribe to it and listen to it. It's a phenomenal podcast. He mentions on this episode just hit 1 year of the podcast, which is awesome. Tim's also an 18-year veteran classroom teacher, middle school teacher, so kind of crazy like you, Ray. Which we didn't dive as much into that in this because we just like there's so many awesome things that Tim does in his journey with the podcast and things that he's learned, the way he's trying to lift up the voices of teachers and inspire other teachers and connect with them has just been such a cool thing that I got us off topic a lot talking about that. But Tim's been, I've never met him in person, but I feel like he's become a really good friend of mine. We vox a lot. We share a lot of feedback with each other. We ask questions to each other. Like, he's just such a good dude. And I think you're going to get that out of this episode in the sense of that he just wants teachers to be heard. He just wants to share the awesomeness that are in classrooms everywhere. He just wants to light Teachers on Fire. That's what I think. That's how I think of that Teachers on Fire, is that he just wants to just inspire them and light them up so that they're ready to go back in the classroom and do amazing things that he's sharing. So, anything about the episode jumping out at you that you remember that you recall? Was it awesome? We had a blast too. We just had fun with them as well.
Yeah, it was really fun. I think one of the funny elements that he said early on was that he was nervous, but Tim is a natural in terms of speaking and really passionate educator. So it was a little humorous to make him uncomfortable because he obviously does podcasting all the time. But I thought that he added such amazing value. He's not just somebody that you listen to on your iPhone when you're working out in the morning, but an incredible teacher. And I was excited to amplify his story more than I think he kind of allows himself on his own podcast. So it's fun to learn really about him as a person.
Yeah, it was fun to sort of flip the microphone on him. Quick question before we get to the episode, like, You've been on quite a few different podcasts. So do you have that same? Do you get kind of a weird, like, oh, it's weird being on the other side of the mic when you go on a podcast? Or
it's so weird. I've loved being featured on other podcasts. It's always fun, different questions and being able to talk to other people. Obviously, I have some favorites in terms of just really cool people that you end up diving into incredible conversations with, but I really love the safety net of Teach Better Talk. We can be a little quirky here, and Jeff always saves my butt if I do something wrong, and I really like that.
Yeah, well, I do what I can, so. All right, so we are here and we are chatting with the one and only Tim Cavey. And Tim, I am super excited for this episode because we've been connected for a while. I was on your podcast, Teachers on Fire, which is a phenomenal podcast. I was on that. It was a year ago, give or take, I think, something like that. Ray's been on the podcast a little more recently. A huge fan of your podcast. We've got you on the other side of the mic tonight, and that gets me pumped up. I hope you're excited, man. How are you feeling right now?
I am feeling good, and like you said, Jeff, it's awesome to be sitting down virtually, I guess, with you two, and on the other side of the mic. I'm a little bit nervous, but excited to get into this.
Tim, you are going to be outstanding. I am such a huge fan of Teachers on Fire. I think everyone in the world has heard of that podcast. So having you on this end
Man.
to actually learn about you as a teacher and everything else you've been able to do will be really, really beneficial. But I want to start by talking about you and how you describe yourself when somebody asks what you do.
Sure. Well, I'll sort of talk a little bit about who I am and what I do, both of those. Hopefully that's all right. So, a quick bio on me. I became a husband and Insta dad 4 years ago. So, I'm kind of in a new chapter of my life. I'm in my 18th year of teaching middle school, if you can believe it. I'm working on my master's in educational leadership. And as you guys mentioned, I started the Teachers on Fire podcast last year. It just celebrated 1 year old. And I'm a big fan of paddleboarding, swimming, canoeing, hiking, camping, anything outdoors, and of course, hockey as a proud Canadian. And I turned the big 4-0 last year. So that was a big deal too.
Tim, I gotta ask because I don't know how I've never asked you this, but who's your team?
My team, well, I live near Vancouver, so I
Mhm.
cheer for the Vancouver Canucks. But
thought
I
you might.
grew up in a city called Winnipeg,
Oh, no
and
kidding.
so still got a soft spot for the Winnipeg Jets as well.
Yeah, that's very cool. So,
Yeah.
you gotta like the you got. I don't mind either one of those teams who are good. I'm a Pittsburgh
All
Penguins
right.
fan, so
Oh yeah, love the
I
Penguins.
grew up going to a lot of those games and stuff. So anyway,
Sweet.
I had to ask. So let's talk. I want to talk real quick. I'm gonna sidestep because I want to talk about your podcast first and foremost.
Yeah, sure.
So let's do a couple things. One, just sort of give us the 30-second commercial of what the podcast is, like sort of how you would sell it to someone. But then I want to know why, like what made you go, you know what, I'm gonna figure this thing out. I'm gonna get a mic. I'm gonna take a whole bunch of my time and I'm gonna start doing this. So can you kind of run us through like what's the show about? What can people expect? And then why did you get into it? Like what was that?
Okay, so good question, and I've sort of written some of this out on my website just to sort of encapsulate this as best I can and go back to it from time to time. But I was inspired kind of over a process of time, and in a few minutes I'll mention Carol Dweck's book Mindset, and that was hugely inspirational for me. But I was a commuter for a few years. I started to really get into podcasts in a big way. I listened to more and more some educational podcasts, but also entrepreneurship podcasts. And I started to get into a number of big entrepreneurs, people like Pat Flynn that you've probably heard of,
Mm-hmm.
and Gary Vee and others.
Mm-hmm.
And I really dig the connections between content creation and making and building and sharing. And I think there are just so many awesome connections between all of that space and education. And so I started to think about a year and a half ago, hey, what kind of a podcast is there that profiles guests, not from the business world, but from the education world? What kind of podcast is doing that work? And at the time, I couldn't really find too much. And I started to think this might be a space, this might be a place for me to share and actually engage with educators and put the spotlight on amazing educators and leaders out there doing great things. So, of course, since then, I've discovered your podcast and countless others. And so there are many of us now today doing this work, and it's awesome to team up with you guys. But at the time, that was my mission, is to get out there and share the word about what was happening in classrooms. So I it was kind of a messy process of getting into podcasting. I didn't really know what I was doing, but a number of helpful coincidences sort of led me to Anchor as a platform. And I started recording on my phone, and it was really awful at first. So don't listen to my first episodes. They were really bad quality, and I would drop calls, and I had a ton of trouble. But it was all a growing process and a learning process, and I stuck with it. And now the podcast has kind of evolved to where it is today, and I'm having a lot of fun.
Well, and I think you paved the way for a lot of. There's a bunch of shows that are similar, like ours. I mean, our show is very similar to yours in the sense that we're doing, we're trying to give educators a voice, and I think you really opened up the door for a lot of people who, in this space that, you know, when you're on the front end of that saying, hey, like this is going on in the business world and entrepreneur world. I don't know if you know, I don't know if we talked about it. I had a podcast in that world before, called Chubs Unite, where I interviewed entrepreneurs and did that and stuff. So like, it was natural for me to want to do a podcast. We talked about it literally with Chad since day one. It just took us a long time, and eventually took Ray just going, hey Jeff, we're going to do this for us to do it. And so, but it was awesome, like discovering that there was already some people out there doing this, and yours was one of the first ones that I discovered. So, it's really cool. Kind of a full circle bringing you on now, I think.
Totally. I just talked to Adam Welcome. I know you guys are familiar with him. And
I'm sorry, who's that? No, I'm just joking. Sorry.
and I know he's a big time, right? And he made the comment that everyone should have a podcast. And I didn't really address it on my show, but I thought about that later, and I think he's right. It's so within reach, and I would say to anyone out there who's maybe in their car or on the treadmill right now, if you love this medium, just start podcasting yourself. Grab the Anchor app, or there are other ways to do it, but just start creating and start sharing ideas. It's really so easy. Anchor does it for free, and it's just a phenomenal. It'll take you places that you never imagined you'd go. So.
And it's free. Do you know how much money I used to spend on my podcast to keep it up and running? It was a lot, Tim. That's how much. It's
incredible.
By the way, just want to give a quick plug that Adam Welcome is one of the people coming out to the Teach Better conference in November in Ohio.
Yes.
Just want to make sure.
Can you say that?
We can, because by the time this episode comes out, we will have released that. So Tim's.
But now
out.
Tim knows, and he has to keep the secret.
Boy. Inside info.
Well, you know, we had him sign all those contracts, so he should be good.
Trust you, Tim.
Hey, what's up? It's Jeff. We're going to get right back to the episode, but how does $50 sound? Head over to teachbetterconference.com, look through the 2-day registration, put in a discount code, Podcast Talk, and you're going to save yourself $50 off registration. We're going to see you on November 8th and 9th at the Teach Better Conference, and right now, let's get back to the episode.
So, all right. So I got us off track. So now let's flip back, Tim. Let's talk about a time that you failed. We talk a lot about that on the podcast. You talk about on your podcast the ups and downs, and everything. So I'm really interested to hear your story. Tell us about a time that you failed. Why was it a failure for you? How did you overcome it, and what did you learn from that?
Well, I'm going to go a little bit personal with this one, so I hope it doesn't become TMI or something. But back in 2009, I applied to enter a Masters of Education program at UBC, which is a large and highly ranked university here in Vancouver. And I was rejected. And for me, that hadn't happened to me too many times in my life, that my application was denied. And for some reason, I took it pretty hard, and I mentioned Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, and I realized, of course, since then that was such a fixed mindset to interpret failure so badly, but I didn't take it very well. And then to make matters worse in my personal life, in the years that followed, I went through kind of a chilly divorce. And then a little bit later, I was renting a basement suite in Vancouver, and the house caught on fire, and I was homeless for a day. So I went through kind of a dark chapter. And I would say in the years leading up to, all of those events that I just mentioned, I wasn't as well networked outside of my school as I should have been. I hadn't been living in that city for all too long. And so I was a little bit socially isolated. Like I said, I was without a home temporarily. I just wasn't in a great place. And, those days taught me tremendous perspective, and they gave me empathy, I believe, for other educators who are forced to deal with their own personal struggles while on the job. It's not every job that, where you have to come in and sort of put on a performance. I mean, every classroom should be a place of laughter and joy. And so it's kind of upon us to some extent, yes, to be real, yes, to be authentic, but also sometimes we need to, I couldn't bring in all of my marital struggles to my middle schoolers, right? And so it's kind of cliche, but it's really so true that everyone around us has a struggle that we know nothing about. And it's really why I appreciate education leaders like people like Mandy Freilich and John Harper. I think of the Teacher's Aid podcast and you guys and others who really make the care of teachers their primary concern. So, of course, since then, the good news is that my life has gotten back on track. And in 2014, I met a wonderful woman, married her in 2015, became an Instadad, which was, I received a hashtag Instadad t-shirt on my wedding day because I am a big Instagrammer as well. And then in 2017, I applied and was accepted at another Master's of Education program. And from there, I just started, I became re-engaged, I would say, in education, recaptured the fire, the passion, got into those conversations, started rebuilding relationships, started the podcast last year, and this year moved to an amazing new school with a progressive staff and a gradeless assessment policy, which is awesome as well. So, one of the things, or I guess one way to summarize this turnaround or this journey that I've been on since, I guess, 2011 or so, is just to say that this too shall pass. And no matter what season of life you're in, just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Keep trusting God and having faith in yourself. Like, take care of yourself. Keep doing good things for kids and things will get better. So that's my story. And that kind of brings you up to date on where I am today.
I love it. I want to grab one piece out of there and have you talk about it too. Can you touch on the gradeless assessment in your school? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
How is that set up? What does it look like?
So that's a whole other topic. I don't know if you want to open that one up, but basically,
we're going to at least crack it open. We'll see what happens.
Yes, we have to.
I know Ray was thinking it too. So
I know. So this, like I said, I've been teaching for 18 years, and this is the first year where I have not been recording numbers in my grade book. And there are no numbers on the report cards. So to some out there, that might be a shock. But if you're interested, check out, I know one of my recent guests, Adam Blackwelder, is doing some great work at TG2, Teachers Going Gradeless, and check them out. But anyway, back to my school. So think of every learning activity and summative assessment in terms of learning targets. And then as teachers, we are assessing students against those learning targets on a proficiency scale of emerging, developing, proficient, and extending. And so I could go deeper on that, but hopefully that sort of clarifies the way we are doing assessment.
Sounds somewhat familiar, Ray.
Yeah, I couldn't love that topic more, I don't think.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. So I wanted to touch on that. I'm glad you mentioned that. So now let's take it the other direction. Let's talk about successful moment you've had. This could be something big or something small, but tell us what happened. Why was it a success for you? And then what'd you take away from that experience?
Well, I keep mentioning Carol Dweck's book, and that book, Mindset, is my number one recommendation to educators out there right now. It really transformed my life and sort of recharged me and put me on a new path. And so, today I regard failure as feedback, and FAIL stands for first attempt in learning. And I'm always reminding my students of the power of yet. And so that has taken me to the podcast. It's taken me to more creating. In fact, my one word for 2019 is create. I want to create more content, more learning, more relationships. And so that has led to more blogging. It's led to more creating. It's led to student podcasting in my classroom. It's led to a couple of speaking gigs, one coming up in a week that I'm really excited about. And so again, remember at the beginning I mentioned entrepreneurship, and I know you're an entrepreneur yourself, Jeff, and Ray, you are as well. And I think you guys would agree that once you catch a whiff of that spirit, it takes you to some very, very fun places. And so I'm just proud of everything that I've been able to be a part of in the last year. And I'm just excited about where it's going.
I am thrilled as well for all the things you have coming up next year, because being connected to you, whether it be on Instagram or through your podcast or any spot in between, I mean, you continuously have incredible value to share with your network.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Ray. You guys are amazing, and I look up to you so much. You're one of my top podcasts for sure. And yeah, that's my goal, is just to bring value and to share ideas And I really like what one of your other guests, Anik Roke, said recently, that, you know, we all have value to share, just even from our own practice. Whatever we're doing in our classrooms is valuable. Sometimes we think it's not, right? But other people need to hear what's going on and what you're learning.
You know, our good friend Chad Ostrowski always says that. He always says that the solutions to every problem we see in classrooms are somewhere in someone else's classroom. We just need to share them. We just need to connect and share them, and I love it. So that's awesome, man. I'd jump in there.
Well, and as we're encouraging others to consider, listening to other podcasts, sharing their message, starting their own, even starting one with their students. With Jeff, you and I have talked about trying to share out how people could do that more effectively. That will be coming soon, I know, of how teachers can be using podcasts to integrate with content. But one element that I've so appreciated about this podcast specifically, and actually, Tim, I know yours as well, is just the ability to connect with people. It's been incredible to connect with people, not only while you're interviewing them on a podcast, but also listening to other people's stories. Even if you're just acting as the listener, you feel connected to these people because you really are able to spend 30, 40 minutes getting to know them. And how incredible is that you're not only building a network maybe on Twitter or Instagram or somewhere in between, but then able to listen to maybe a deeper view of how they got where they are and what they're most passionate about.
I completely agree. I couldn't say it any better. There are so many teachers and educators out there who are blogging, Ray, and every one of those bloggers could just pick up their phone and read their blog, and that's the podcast, right? And so people forget that there are listeners out there who are just hungry for content, and I can run through a lot of podcasts in a week just on my commute or working out and washing the dishes or whatever else I'm doing. And yeah, I would just encourage the listeners to get out there and give it a try. It's an awesome medium for sure.
So obviously we're passionate about this, and it's getting us excited about all the possibilities. Something I even heard listening to your episode recently with Adam Welcome was the focus on video and wanting to create video content. But obviously these things are really exciting. It's kind of our thing. But as it comes to the question I want to ask you is maybe a little more tied to education in terms of what's really fueling your fire? What's getting you excited these days about the amazing field that we're in?
So it sort of continues right along the same theme, but I am teaching a couple of electives this year, and I love everything I'm teaching, but I get to teach media arts, which is movie making, and I get to teach entrepreneurship and marketing. How fun are those? And so in movie making, we're using Video, which is a fantastic platform. If you're out there thinking about doing some movie making in your middle school or maybe your high school classroom, check out Video. And as a teacher, it allows you to sort of see all of the work that your students are doing and check their progress, see how much time they're spending in the platform, and coach them along the way. And there is some collaborative capability there as well. So that has been a ton of fun. And then in entrepreneurship, I actually get to show people like Pat Flynn and Casey Neistat and other really cool content creators and make those connections with the real world and get kids excited about authentic audiences. I think it's Gary Vee that says there's never been a better time in history to build a business around your passion. So really, why not? And maybe I'm beating the same old drum over and over here, but I just think it's a phenomenal time. It's something I'm trying to model myself, and hopefully my students, hopefully my boys are sort of catching a little bit of that passion too.
So, Tim, when it comes to advice, you obviously have shared an incredible amount so far. But when we start targeting, specifically new teachers or teachers that are looking to start something new and be a little bit more progressive in their classroom and create student ownership and all these amazing ideas that I know education is taking us that direction in the classrooms around the world. But what type of advice do those teachers need to keep trekking forward?
Okay, I'll keep this quick. A couple of points to keep in mind, and I'm thinking back to my own experience and what I see other young teachers doing today. Number one, try to avoid doing school stuff in the evenings. Like if you have to stay at the school for a while after that last bell, do what you need to do, but check out by dinner time, and then try not to do any schoolwork in the evening. Try to just relax and turn to hobbies, turn to relationships. But you're going to be a better teacher if you can have that personal time and diversify. Number 2, keep your phone out of the bedroom at night. That has been transformational for me. And I just find I do so much more journaling and reading and all that good stuff. And I also get to sleep faster when I'm not scrolling social media. So that's been good. And third, create an education-only Twitter account and engage there daily. And I have to have another Twitter account. You can keep up with politics and get the latest Donald Trump headlines, then go for it. But I really think education only. Well, I say that, guys, because Twitter gets a bad rap as, you hear it called a cesspool of toxicity and all of that stuff. But when you make an education only account, I swear, every time I drop into my Teachers on Fire or my Mr. Cavey Twitter accounts, it is nothing but positivity and inspiration. It's amazing. And so I know you guys are Twitter evangelists as well. I would say, man, make that education only Twitter account and just engage there daily, and you'll gain so much from that.
Absolutely. You can surround yourself with so much positivity and so many positive people that don't have to be around you. I mean, today, and that's more on that, the time we live in allows you to do that. It's amazing. So I love it. So great advice. Now we're gonna have a little bit of fun, and I'm ready. I'm excited for this because this is like I'm not Tim. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, we're gonna be so transparent here. I stole this from you. Like, I'm not like we did. I'm like, hey, like, this was an awesome thing. Like, why not? Why reinvent the wheel? Like, he kills it. This is an awesome thing on your thing. I love your rapid fire. Is that what you call it on your podcast? Rapid fire.
I've started calling it quick picks, but whatever.
Quick picks. I like it. We just call it the fun thing. We just call it the fun thing, right? Do we call it anything, Ray? We don't call it anything, do we?
Well, we do hand out a trophy afterwards.
Well, apparently, yeah, we have trophy. We have a lot of trophies I have to go buy. So we're
I
ready
heard
to
about Joe Sanfilippo's trophy. That sounds pretty cool.
No, we just
brought up Joe's. He brought it up, Ray. Ray's trying to forget that episode because Joe and I got on her so bad.
You did, yeah.
It was awesome. It was great. It got worse afterwards too, Tim.
No.
I'm just joking.
Are
Joe
we
was
still
awesome.
recording this podcast? Can we?
Are
be
we
done
still?
now?
I don't know. This is how we go. We have no control over things.
All right, let's do it.
All right. So what are we doing right now? You're interviewing me, right? Go ahead.
No.
Oh no. Okay. I'm just. All right. Here we go. All right. So Tim, what is one ed tech tool you cannot live without?
My Kindle is synced with my Goodreads account. Amazing. It stores all my highlights and curates my learning, so I love it.
Love it. And what's a book that you're reading right now?
I just started Digital Minimalism with Cal Newport. Very interesting.
And who do we need to follow on Twitter today?
2 guys, Ryan Coop, he's at rcoop7 and I've got another guy at Smirty Teacher.
And what's the best YouTube channel or website?
Well, I'd love people to check out Teachers on Fire, but one I've been using in my classroom a lot lately is Math Antics.
And give us a daily, weekly, or monthly routine every teacher should get into.
I learned this from The Creative Habit with Twyla Tharp. Get up early. I get up at 4:30 and I get out of the house. I go to Starbucks, and that's where I have amazing productivity time. And the hack there is just get out of the house, and that eliminates the temptation to go back to bed.
Ooh, I love it. Getting up at 5 a.m. is one of the best things I've ever done in my life. Best piece of advice you've ever received?
I heard this on the Fizzle Show last year. Fear is always triggered by creativity because creativity asks you to enter into realms of uncertain outcomes. This is nothing to be ashamed of. It is, however, something to be dealt with, and that's from Elizabeth Gilbert. So don't wait till everything is perfect and you control every variable before trying something new. Just take action, and the learning and growth will follow.
If you wait till you're ready, you'll never be ready.
That's right.
I love it. Okay, I'm going to add a 7 because I wanted to ask you this one. Put you on the spot. Give us like 3 education podcasts that we should go listen to and subscribe to.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, man. So obviously this one. I've got...
Nah, not this one. Another one. Give me 3 others.
Okay.
I mean, I appreciate that. I'll slip you the 20 afterwards, but like 3 others.
So another one that I like is House of Ed Tech with Chris Nessie.
Great.
I like the Aspire Leadership Podcast with Joshua Stamper.
Great one.
I've got so many In Awe Podcast with Sarah Johnson. There we go.
Yeah, Ray was just on that.
Yeah,
I
that's
was.
right. I saw your name there.
I actually have to
haven't heard it
listen to the rest of the episode. I listened to about 3/4 of it. It's a great episode. Great
See, but
podcast. Awesome.
Sarah has a magic about her. I've told
Yes,
her
she
this. Her
does.
voice, and she pulled out all these secrets that I re-listened to that episode this morning because it released this morning, and I was like, I can't believe I said all that stuff.
I'm gonna tell you something about Sarah. One of the best. This is, and I hope she listens and blushes. But
Awesome.
we're connected on Voxer, and like it's not every day, but every just couple of days, she just drops me a message, and like I'm just like my day's better. Like she's just always looking to just do whatever she can to just brighten your day. Like she's phenomenal. So really glad that we connected.
It's funny you say brighten your day because she loves taking amazing sunrise and sunset
She
pictures.
does.
Follow her on Instagram. Yeah.
When she's always running, yeah, she loves doing that. It's always great stuff. Yeah.
Well, Tim, I have to say it was a complete honor to interview you on this podcast. You have inspired me to do so much. Like I said, not to embarrass you, but I am such a fan of the work you've done and will continue to do. And I can't believe that we snagged you up to convince you to come on Teach Better Talk, because there is incredible value that you shared here and that you continue to share on all of the platforms that our listeners can connect with you. So I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to kind of share wherever our listeners can continue to receive this value and hear from you after this podcast is ending.
Thank you for that so much, Ray. I have to say, you two guys are two of the nicest in the biz. So thank you so much for having me on. I can be found at Teachers on Fire just about everywhere: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And of course, my website is teachersonfire.net. So drop by there. And my latest project is pulling together interested educators who want to do some writing on a platform called Medium. If that is something that is interesting to you, drop me a DM on Twitter and come join the writing team on Teachers on Fire magazine there at Medium. But thank you so much, guys. This has been an absolute blast. I hope I was okay. I hope that made for some listenable content.
It's been great. And you can find all the links and all the resources and everything we've mentioned in this episode over at teachbetter.com, as well as those really important links for connecting with Tim and maybe getting a chance to write with him with the magazine on Medium. We'll have all that in the show notes over at teachbetter.com. So make sure you head over for all of that. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. And if you can give us a rating and review, we'd really appreciate that, because a lot of you are listening, but you haven't all left a review. And I'm telling you right now, Ray is watching you, and she's coming for you. So get on it. And then I really do want to do this. I've been pushing this a lot, and I'm going to continue to push this because I want it to happen. But I want you to take it one step further. Think of 3 colleagues or friends or family members who you know that need to hear these amazing stories, and share this podcast with them. We want it to get to more people. We want to inspire them with stories like Tim's. So please get out there and do that. Tim, man, this was awesome. Like, truly, Ray said it best when she said it's been an honor to have you on. This is really, really cool. We both had the pleasure of being on your show. You do such an amazing job. You're doing awesome things up there in lovely, beautiful British Columbia, Canada. And
Right.
We were just super excited to have you on, man. So I really appreciate you taking some time and hanging out with us.
Thanks, guys. This has been great.
And until next time, let's get out there and let's teach better.